With his funny laugh and weird sense of humor, Vince Masuka quickly became a fan favorite, but he can be overwhelming and sometimes completely out of pocket with his freaky habits. Today, we'll be looking at every time Vince Masuka was a creep. Even when he isn't the intended focus, Masuka can steal a scene with a simple turn of phrase at just the right moment. He has no filter, seemingly speaking the first thing that comes to his mind no matter how inappropriate it is or who may hear it. Such was the case in episode 4 of Dexter Original Sin as Dexter wraps up a critical demonstration for Maria. Maria, Harry, and Dexter are investigating a series of 3 homicides that have been labeled NHI, or non-human involved cases, by the department because the victims all appear to have lived alternate lifestyles before their death. The cases originally seem to be random and unrelated murders, but after Dexter analyzes the scenes, he begins to suspect that the killer was savoring the kills and he sets off to prove it. Using cantaloupe and ketchup packets, Dexter shows LaGuerta the different ways that blood can pool depending on the manner of attack. As it turns out, the cantaloupe in question were Tanya's from the break room, which she notices as she walks by. After hearing her ask, "Are those my melons?" Masuka takes the opportunity to make a joke about his boss's boobs to the brand new intern in front of their colleagues.
Are those my cantaloupes?
Hands off Tanya's melons.
This is a man who openly complimented Lieutenant Pascal's sweater melons as she delivered an important press conference, told Lieutenant LaGuerta she should be polishing Batista's lance, and described the phrase autoerotic mummification in graphic detail to his coworkers at a crime scene as 2 dead bodies lay in a pool of blood before them.
I know exactly what happened. 2 words. Autoerotic mummification.
It's obvious that Masuka is not deterred by workplace hierarchy, considering even bosses fair game to be the butt of his juvenile jokes. Vince Masuka is nothing if not a red-blooded male. He is not the typical ladies' man, but Masuka is seen with a number of different women throughout the original series. This is probably because the bold and brash Masuka is seldom shy about shooting his shot. In the prequel series, younger Masuka is almost immediately shown to be a bit of a hound dog. In the premiere, as Dexter explores his college campus, he stumbles upon a table fair, displaying special interest groups, career opportunities, and extracurricular activities for students to join. It's there that he spots the booth for Miami Metro's homicide department, manned by none other than Vince Masuka, who is hitting on passing women and snapping pictures of the ones he fancied. A couple of students stop at the booth and ask if the crime scene photos on display were real. The ladies are disgusted to learn that they are, but Dexter is taken by the gory images. He scrutinizes them closely as Masuka continues scouting out young women to catcall. Dexter is still entranced by the blood in the pictures when Masuka is heard shouting at one woman,
"Want to see my 9-inch nail? Really? Hoser."
To round out the scene, Masuka snaps a picture of his misconnection before he waves away a newly inspired Dexter for cock-blocking his booth.
Can you move? You're cock-blocking my booth.
Quite a bold first impression, but hey, subtlety was never really Masuka's strong suit. Masuka's approach to friendly conversation is unlike most, and his ability to read a room can leave a lot to be desired. No one wants to think of their family members as sexually appealing, but apparently that's not really a concern for Masuka. In Season 2, Episode 1, as the team approaches a fresh crime scene, Vince asks Dexter about Deborah following her recent leave of absence. Following her abduction at the hands of Brian Moser, the ice truck killer, Deb took some time away from work while she recovered. Masuka asks Dexter if she's in any kind of shape. Believing Masuka is asking about his sister's mental and emotional fortitude, Dexter answers in the affirmative, saying that nothing can keep Deb down. Masuka then clarifies his question. No,
I mean, did she pack on any pounds while she was gone? Because, last time I saw her, she was tight.
Already perverse enough that Vince is saying this about a colleague, but when you consider that this is Deb's first day back after a very traumatic event, and that he's talking to her brother, it's easy to see just how comfortable Masuka is speaking his most disturbed thoughts out loud. The comments to Dexter about Deborah's looks were a bit of a bad habit, with Dexter even having to remind Vince on at least one occasion that she was his sister. Extra points for making even Dexter uncomfortable. Vince Masuka is truly an HR nightmare. With innumerable inappropriate comments and jokes throughout the years, it's almost a wonder Masuka still has a job with Miami Metro. He must truly be one hell of a forensic investigator to get away with hitting on his coworkers, planning sexy bachelor parties while on the clock, and even storing extreme adult movies on his work computer. Masuka can behave like a complete degenerate at times, and it appears that this has been the case even since his early days at Miami Metro. In the second episode of Dexter Original Sin, Dexter has recently started at Miami Metro and is looking for a way to blend in with his new coworkers. To make this happen, Dexter decides to bring in an assorted vegetable platter to share with the department. As one would imagine, this didn't exactly hit the mark like he'd hoped it would, and Dexter is left awkwardly holding a full tray of veggies that none of the cops want anything to do with. Witnessing his son's failed attempt at connection, Harry calls Batista over and asks him to take Dexter out to help him fit in more. Angel agrees, noting that Dexter can be a bit socially awkward, and asks Harry if he should invite Masuka, as he's of a similar age. The pair look over only to find Masuka making inappropriate gestures behind a female coworker who has bent over preoccupied with an office printer. Visibly cringing, Harry advises against it, saying,
Masuka's better in smaller doses.
Masuka is more than a walking joke book. He's also a dedicated and skilled forensics investigator with a keen eye for case-solving evidence. His choice of profession is clearly rooted in a genuine passion for the field, as he takes many opportunities to develop and showcase his knowledge. Masuka has been published, spoken at seminars, and acted as a college professor, all in the name of love for his craft. So, when his expertise goes unnoticed and unappreciated by other members of the department, Vince is hurt and decides to tone down his humor and focus solely on his work when he's on the clock. The stark change does not go unnoticed, and eventually Deborah and Angel confront him about his new look and demeanor. Masuka explains to them that they hurt his feelings by ignoring his contributions and never taking him seriously.
You hurt my feelings.
Given Masuka's typical behavior, can anyone really blame them for that though? Either way, it was an unexpected peek into a facet of Vince that had not yet been shown. And even with his confidence shaken, Masuka is able to pinpoint minute differences between two killings that were on the verge of being improperly linked by an overzealous Ramon Prado. Desperate to solve the murder of his youngest brother, Ramon tries to dismiss Masuka's analysis out of hand, telling them that his lab has reached a different conclusion, and he agrees with that one. He immediately receives pushback from Deborah and Angel, who expresses faith in their friend's abilities. Angel informs Ramon that Masuka is their lead forensics investigator and that there's no one better.
He's our lead forensic investigator, and there's no one better.
Masuka steps forward and tells Ramon that his analysis was not rooted in opinion, but science. And science is
one cold-hearted bitch with a 14-inch strap-on.
Expression itself was probably the most outrageous thing many have ever heard in a professional setting. Though he's often the butt of the team's jokes, Masuka is almost always able to hold his own with a quick and sickening retort. Turning stomachs and inspiring groans regularly, Masuka's clapbacks are some of the most out-of-pocket lines in the show. A shining example is in Season 1, Episode 7 of the original series. The team scours the home of Niall Perry, the latest suspect in the ice truck killer case. They discover an assortment of unsettling taxidermied animals. Each of the sickening creations is made up from the parts of different animals, only adding to their macabre essence. When Deb voices her disgust for them, Masuka describes them as fine art, leading Deb to jokingly ask if they could run Masuka's prints as the ice truck killer. Masuka responds that there's no need for that and offers his warm DNA sample as a more immediate option.
Can I have permission to run Masuka's prints as the ice truck killer?
I'll give you some warm DNA right now.
This thinly veiled innuendo, punctuated with his signature laugh, is classic Vince Masuka. Season 5 follows Dexter as he tracks down a group of 5 men who are discovered to be kidnapping, assaulting, and killing women. After discovering their 13th and final victim, Lumen Pierce, stowed away during a kill, Dexter is pushed into teaming up with her to hunt them down and bring them to justice. In episode 6 of the season, Lumen goes undercover to lure one of her attackers, Dan the Dentist, to his death. Once she has him alone, Lumen planned to shoot Dan to make him pay for what he'd done to her. When the plan goes awry, however, she is forced to call Dexter, desperate for help. Around the same time, someone places a call to report hearing gunshots in that vicinity, causing Deb and Masuka to be called out to investigate a potential homicide. Believing Lumen to be on her way back to her family, Dexter is surprised to hear of these developments. He is in the middle of a kill, but he goes to her aid right away, putting his current victim in the trunk of his car. When he arrives, he learns that Dan the Dentist has dragged himself to safety, being only wounded when shot by Lumen earlier. They find him, and though he feigns innocence, he's confirmed to be exactly who they think he is, and Dexter finishes him off. Needing to clean up the scene before the homicide department finds them, he sends Lumen away and gets to work. When the Miami Metro teams arrive on the scene, they can't find a body, but Masuka spots blood from Dan on the concrete, noting that it's still fresh, meaning the victim could still be in the area. With that, Deborah leads the team around the property looking for the source of the blood. Meanwhile, Dexter has sent Lumen on her way, recaptured and neutralized his original target, and set to work arranging it to appear that he and Dan the dentist killed each other. Dexter has just finished staging the crime scene when the Miami Metro crew comes upon his car. He approaches them, camera in hand, and pretends as if he's just arrived and at one easily. 2 words: autoerotic mummification.
I know exactly what happened. 2 words. Autoerotic mummification.
And launches into a detailed description of what that means and how he believed it to have gone down in this scenario, complete with vulgar gestures to better illustrate. Deb sarcastically thanks him for the visuals when he wraps up his explanation. Only Masuka could possibly come to such a conclusion, especially with such immediacy. His knowledge of very niche fetishes has come in handy for Miami Metro before when they were tracking the ice truck killer in season 1. So it makes sense they'd be open to leaning on it again to understand this perplexing scene. Rita's death was without a doubt one of the most pivotal moments of the original series. After watching her relationship with Dexter develop for 4 captivating seasons, it was difficult to imagine the show without her acting as his anchor. We were all at a loss for words when the finale of season 4 concluded with Dexter discovering Rita's lifeless body in a bathtub overflowing with bloody water, a known signature of the previously elusive Trinity killer. Masuka, however, was far from speechless. At a time when everyone from Lieutenant LaGuerta to the next door neighbor is in a state of shock and disbelief, Masuka's mind is as perverted as ever. While he examines Rita's corpse to better understand the scene, Masuka turns to his coworkers and says in a somber tone that he'd imagined her naked plenty of times, but
I imagined her naked plenty of times, but never like this.
At least Dexter wasn't around to hear the disturbingly off-color comment. Overall, Masuka is a one-of-a-kind creep with plenty of hilarious quirks and idiosyncrasies to make him a common source of comic relief. He may be out of line from time to time, but he is a beloved character, accepting for who he is, disturbing jokes and all.